he graciously agreed to come talk to us about OneDrive for Business, which, and maybe a direction that Jefferson is going to go and relieve our old servers because they're kind of dilapidated and we lose stuff sometimes. And so some of you all will remember experiencing when they died and people were scrambling trying to find divisional information again and so forth. So, without further ado, Matt Varney.
Hello. First of all, can you hear me on the? All right. Just so I'm talking light up a bit. How many people have actually gone to the OneDrive already and know what's going on? Halfway? That's fine. Not at all. That's fine. So I'll cover a little bit too, go a little bit deeper dive, and I'll try to put it into some perspective of where it fits in this whole range of available tools that we have, both at the system level anyway. It's real informal. It's a small group, so if you have any questions at any time, just find the nearest blunt object and throw it my way and try to hit my head. And, might respond to that. But if there are any questions anytime, just let me know. We'll go through them. So I'm going to spend a lot of time on OneDrive, go over a real short presentation, a demonstration, and hopefully that'll stretch out with questions, answers, and we'll fill up the time allotted. And then I'm going to spend a little bit of time getting the big picture with the rest of the employee internet. The KCTCS Employee Internet launched about a year and a half ago, almost, with sort of a version that you see here. It's what we consider sort of the internal web publishing layer for all the, at the start, driven applications and services. So it began with HR related information, as well as news and events from office. And we also are able to use it to link into our enterprise systems like PeopleSoft. So at the time of launch, we had and we still have, the connection to HR self-service in PeopleSoft through the internet. So you can view that and interact with that data, your personal data in HR, through the internet. It's a little bit more interactive than the PeopleSoft environment. Wrong way. The front page was actually redesigned a little bit about a month ago now, just over the holiday break. We got more and more content and services presented here, so we shrunk it down and has a little bit new design, but still the same principle. We've got this web publishing layer for the internal employees. Some of the stuff that's on our public websites for employees sort of muddies the message sometimes for our students, our prospective students, so we're trying to bring that content into internal systems like the internet to help separate those materials for those different audiences. Part of the initial launch too was this search center. Quick poll, how many people have ever gone to search.kctcs.edu, a website? So about 10 people. That's what we're seeing. We need to do a better job on our end of getting the message out. But this is an interesting service, I think. It provides enterprise search for your documents that you have saved somewhere in SharePoint, on your OneDrive, anywhere on a team site. We are going to be looking at expanding that to search your email. So for stuff that lives in email that you can't find, you come to one spot. There are some enhancements with document preview, so you get a list of search results of documents, for instance, and you open each one to see what's in it. You can actually sort of hover over it and it'll expand. Pretty interesting things. And it's very secure to use, so searching everything, but it's only pulling back what you have access to. So it's going to do that on your behalf. So you don't have to worry about accidentally or wandering into a document you don't belong to. And we continue to evolve. That's part of what we're going to do today is talk about a specific part of the internet, which is this OneDrive for Business area. I'm going to hopefully spend a lot of time on that. If I have time at the end, I think I might, I'm going to touch on these other areas of the internet. There's going to be another session or a couple in the next few months, specifically on the internet, so I won't go too deep into that unless there are questions. But we'll just go ahead and get started, and I'll try to do a little bit of a road ahead, too, to give you an idea of what's coming, because I know there's a lot of questions and uncertainty. I'm not going to play that video, because I'll talk about it here. Again, putting it in a bigger perspective, when you think about all the tools that we have available, there's just lots of them, and they're all starting to coalesce around sort of a Microsoft service-centric, and we've got access and ability to serve to premises on servers that we own and control in our data center, as well as in the Microsoft cloud. So we've got these two separate areas that we're trying to merge together in one common experience. So we had 2 years ago all of the cloud, Office 365. That's all taken care of up there. It's worked out pretty well. Last fall, almost a year and a half ago, we did the SharePoint 2013 on-premise, sorry it's a little fuzzy, version of the internet that publishing layer talked about. We also have the enterprise search on-premise. These are, again, on the servers that we control. We have a little bit more ability to connect to the back-end systems and things like that. Last summer, we launched all our team sites. So everything that was on the point was migrated to team sites, 90% of it. And since then, we've added a couple hundred sites across the system for teams to work in, for sites to work in, teams to work on sites that are private to them to collaborate, communicate, and store their documents.
That's what they call groups that's in now.
Office 365?
Uh-huh.
That's slightly different, which is also confusing.
Okay.
This is a more permanent structure. I guess the groups are as well, but the groups are intended for sharing information through a common mailbox, essentially. So it's all mostly through email. This is a place where it's a site, you can build other things on it, like a calendar, a task list, projects, metadata, all kinds of stuff happening. So it's a little bit more permanent and a little bit more involved. Next phase, alongside that, was the OneDrive, which we're going to talk about today. Getting to it. And this is what I always tell people: OneDrive is for one person, you. It's the intent. It's a personal place, personal bucket in the sky that you can put stuff. By default, it's secure to you, but you have the option to share documents out of it. And I'll show you all of that in a minute. Again, on premises, connect these back-end systems that we have going. PeopleSoft Blackboard, the connection's not there yet, but we're planning for all this stuff. And coming soon is a sort of a middle layer that will help connect this and connect us all together with more of an enterprise social environment. Okay, with OneDrive. What do you say? After that 10-minute commercial. So let's talk about this often, especially at the beginning. I would say, I'm going to talk about OneDrive, and I would get viewers, attendees, like what? What are you talking about? What does that mean? So I'm just going to go through the definition real quick. There's one. OneDrive, again, is for one person. It's your personal area. It's connected to you. It's connected to your account. And it's intended for your stuff. You currently have a solution similar to that. A network drive, a home drive, What's the letter of designation here? Is it H? Or does it matter? Okay. Okay. Some colleges have a specific, this is your H drive, quote unquote, and it's a network drive to your personal storage. But that's on a file server on the premises, which has worked, for 20 years. That model has worked, but there are better ways now, and there are more interesting ways to manage your personal storage using OneDrive. And there's also a lot more space available. By a lot more, I mean. It's secure and private by default. That is, it's initially out of the box, it belongs to you and you only. No one's going to get into it other than a system under an open source request kind of thing. You, though, since it is yours, it belongs to you, you have the ability to share pieces of it, a folder in it, a document in it, things like that. So what that's all about, and go through best practice of doing that in just a second. Even if you have the ability to share, it's often not necessarily the best place to do ongoing sharing. If you're working on a project or a part of a team or a department, that kind of activity where you commonly share with the same people the same kind of information would serve you all better if everyone on that team had that permission sort of built in. You wouldn't have to worry about it. Set it up one time, and the information and the documents and the tracking that you do normally as a group can take place there, and all that sharing information can happen there more natively, I guess. Because if you've got a OneDrive and you've got 100 folders in there, and you start sharing out folders, this one goes to Bill, this one goes to Jane, this one goes to Sue. You got to keep track of this. It's going to be difficult to manage personally. Possibly doable, but just as a best practice, if you're doing a lot of sharing with the same groups of people, let's figure out ways to make a team for you, turn it over for you, and you can have the same type of control, but just more encapsulating, more specific to that ongoing sharing request. Advantage of Drive and advantage is so your home drive here on campus is usually only available when you're on campus, unless you had a VPN or some other special connection back into the campus network. And it was a little more limiting to work with and access your files. So if you were traveling or you were given a class at the museum or something, you couldn't access your files from there easily. With OneDrive, because it's a file sharing mechanism and managed as part of the Office 365 Microsoft Cloud, it's always available from anywhere there's a network connection. We started out, every employee had 25 gigabytes of space, which was good, but not a whole lot. And then, like 3 months after that, they said, okay, you get a terabyte. Mm-hmm. And then last fall, it's unlimited. There is no really to the amount of files you can put up there, the collective amount of information. There are, in terms of a single file cannot be more than gigabytes in file. So these large, high-definition movies or lecture captures or things like that may not necessarily work up there right now, but they're ready to increase that. But in terms of the total amount of space consumed by all your documents, you'll not run out. With the Microsoft service, the cloud Office 365 services that they provide, it's nice because they do a lot of work for you, and they, say, okay, in this quarter you're going to have this new feature, but you don't know what day exactly it's going to come. They've got a lot of different customers, and they sort of host them in a scheme that makes sense for their business. And you're in a bucket with a bunch of other customers, so they don't really say on January 1st you're going to do this. They just say first quarter you're going to have this feature. I don't mean to alarm people when I say our stuff is up there with other Microsoft customers. That does not mean that our information intermingles at all. There are definitely security boundaries between instances and between customers. It's just that they have their bank of servers, essentially. We get some, another customer gets another, but they're all in the same room. Think of it that way. They're not really, they're not intermingling customer data. They would go out of business. People would not use their service, and they get sued a lot. Also, while I'm on that subject, I'll touch on it. Because we are a customer of theirs, there's a specific actual legal binding document. It's called a BS, I believe. BSA, Business Services Agreement. Kind of. But they are under obligation to protect our data as if we owned it on premises here. They're just under a legal obligation. So, will stuff happen? Maybe. I mean, there's not 100% guarantee, but because of that legal, they're going to make sure it doesn't, and we can take action if it does. And they've got that with all the universities and colleges and other customers that they interact with. They've got, banks and financial players up there too. So, I went crazy with those. I'm sorry. The good thing about this too is, there in the recent past there have been alternatives to your local storage. There's been Dropbox and Google Drive and those kinds of services, which were attractive, and they worked, and they were easy to use, and that made their the desire for those increase even more. The trouble with those, of course, is that those are really on someone else's domain. They're not anywhere near Jefferson's or KCS's purview of operations. So you have to sort of separate your work context and go and log in with your Dropbox account and do your thing, and then come back to your workstation and do your thing with that document. It's a different user and legal model. We couldn't. That was not sustainable. But we had no alternative until OneDrive came along. And OneDrive is every bit as good and every bit as easy to use, but it provides an extra benefit of being able to work within your college context. So your work stuff goes to your work OneDrive. It just makes more sense.
So you see us getting away from downloading software?
Yeah, well, yes and no. In what terms?
Well, because so much seems to be going to the cloud, and I know that even in Outlook now, it'll say, is this on OneDrive, or is this on the cloud, or this is whatever the terminology is. Even files that I have stored on my own flash drive, when I get ready to print them, they'll say, where do you want to pull this from?
Right.
It's the flash drive,
right.
And it's from the other software. And to me, that's a little bit confusing. So are we going to get away from installing the Office, or are we just going to use whatever's in the cloud, or how's that going to work?
I don't think it'll ever, well, I can't say never, but I think it'd be a very long time before we get completely away from client software, from Office on your computer or your mobile device or whatever. Because even if a lot of the work happens and the files are actually stored up there, the device has to know how to get there. So there's always some kind of client that actually works on your device or your desktop. So it's just a matter of you always, but size and scope of applications and the big software that you download will probably continue to shrink and see more functionality and storage move to cloud. I'll probably show it in a minute, like with desktop, the times of the location is team site area on case SharePoint Online. So or makers pushing that. That's their model, especially when they have the ability to provide that cloud storage service in Google. So we're moving that direction. It's not gonna be a quick or complete, I don't think. Mentioned Dropbox. This is a sanctioned, I use the word sanctioned, a much better alternative to Dropbox and Google Drive and things like that, because you still can share those documents in that cloud interface that was gaining popularity, and you can do it more securely within our context. And you can still share with outside people. So if you work with some local businesses here in workforce development, or the city leadership or the county leadership in some way, you can actually still share with those people. They can receive a Microsoft login and manage that themselves, but you can get that access to your stuff pretty easily. And it's only one half of sort of the solution or alternative to things like Dropbox. The other I mentioned is the SharePoint Online for the for the ongoing sharing and collaboration. Slide was put in right after we increased to a terabyte, because that was like everybody gets a terabyte. You get a terabyte. You get a terabyte. You get a terabyte. Doing that Oprah. But I wanted to show the enormity of that, but not worry about that. It's just a lot of files. Even if you were still in the file, still at this limit, you'd have, you know, 500 hours of broadcast quality audio that you could stick up. Who's got that laying around right now? I mean, it's a lot of space. But all that is infinite now. Okay, so that's sort of what it is. How do you get to it? I mean, that's important. The answer is a lot of ways. You can get to it through Windows Explorer on your desktop or laptop, desktop or laptop. Through a number of, for the web interface, so you open a web browser, you point it to https://my the URL just blank. So I'll come back to that when I pull it up. I'll show you. Right. Right. So, and that's a good point. So if you go to webmail, you used to see. I'll point this out too. So the other areas of the cloud, there's sites and OneDrive. Right. It's all there. It's really the most common way. And going the web interface actually gives you the richest experience in terms of managing it. So if you want to share stuff, if you want to set up additional folders and set up some structure and some stuff, you really want to work in your OneDrive, I'd recommend using the web interface, because you just have more of the tools are exposed. These other ways of getting that stuff are usually, I need to document, so let me go grab it through this one method, or I need to put a document up there, so I'm going to use this other method. You can open it and interact with it directly from Microsoft Office applications, those desktop applications. A lot of times your default file, save as location, file open from location is OneDrive. And then a whole host of mobile apps, including the most recent update last week from Microsoft on iOS devices, iPhones and iPads, sorry, blanking. An update that will, and Macs too, allow the Macs to access OneDrive from the Mac environment much more closely like the Windows environment had through their version of Windows Explorer. I guess it's File Finder or something. Not a Mac person.
So those of us who are stuck with the Android systems, are we out of luck?
No.
Because I've tried it, it will not go
Okay.
That's what I wanna take from here.
Okay.
I wanna know how to do that.
We'll take a look.
Very frustrating.
We'll take a look at the end. Okay. I'll work with you and see what we can do. I've not had experience, but I know they recently updated something, so we'll take a look. So Windows Explorer I mentioned. This is a small screen, and you all are far back, so I'll look for that. But if you had OneDrive enabled, it would show up on the left-hand side as a place to store stuff, just like C drive or your network drive. This is the web interface, the old version anyway. This is a file open from Word, the default location is OneDrive. And there are a whole host of mobile apps available. That should work, and we'll get it working. Okay. So you know what it is, you know how to get to it in different ways, then what? What to do with it? What's so special about it? One thing that's kind of cool, can be confusing. Dangerous is the wrong word. It can be confusing. Sync simply means that you are keeping the information, the file folder structure in OneDrive in sync with your devices. So there's not necessarily the same copy on each, but it knows the full structure on each device. And what it does is on your devices, it creates pointers, little shortcuts, link those documents. So it knows the structure, knows the hierarchy, knows the folders, knows the file names, and where this. So if you want to open something, you can go to your sync folder, hit open. It's actually behind the scenes going to copy. It never makes a copy initially. It's powerful, convenient. Requires some diligence because if you start making copies on multiple devices, that can get a little personally confusing. I've got it in my OneDrive. I've synced to my desktop. Now I've got it on my phone too, which is the best, most recent copy, most valid copy. 99 times out of 100, it's going to be the cloud copy because it's supposed to be the master. What the device? Do I have a copy locally? Yes, no, yes, okay. Is it older or newer than the cloud version? If not, if it is older, then newest version. If it's newer, the cloud version, sync it back up. So it tries to keep most in one space, not in the cloud drive. There are some volume concerns. So in your OneDrive, you have infinite space. On your desktop or laptop or your phone, you have not infinite space. So if you start syncing all that stuff and making local copies, one of them is going to run out of room. That's not, the situation hasn't happened yet, so I'm not sure if there are going to be warnings or if, there are warnings on your computer, but if there's an extra set of warnings on OneDrive for something that's going to light up when that starts to approach. But there's something to be aware of. Security concerns too. So I mentioned that OneDrive is safe. It's encrypted both in OneDrive. It's encrypted in trash as you're transferring stuff. So if you have a spreadsheet full of social security numbers from students, I'll skip the why question. Whatever, and it's part of the job. So that would be going to be fine. And sort of what you want to do though is start syncing that same file, mobile devices especially, because if you lose that mobile device, then that information is and not in the where it's secure, most secure. So, don't. Okay. And what? So aside from syncing, is the ad hoc sharing that I mentioned. So you are an ad hoc implies infrequent. It's a little bit more personal. So if it's your immediate boss, then you can set up your OneDrive your boss report. Share that folder to your boss or to your report. That way, you're the boss, and they can have access to that folder and everything in it. Anytime they want. So if it's one-off, like I've got to do this one time for this one report at the end of the semester, let's do that. Or if it's small scale and sort of just one-to-one or OneDrive, fine. Over time, though, it can get difficult to manage. You've got a bunch of one-offs. Did the 8th one-off you ever did, is that still valid? Or you still need to share that with people? You need to go back and manage that, take that sharing off? Do more people need to see that now? What's changed about that? What about the 7th time or the 9th time? So if you've got a bunch of things going on, a whole bunch of one-offs going on, keeping track of that can be difficult. So think team types in the first place if you do more of that. There's also a feature in OneDrive, and I'll show you this in the demo, where you can turn on auction. And again, this is accessible, where you can say everything in my OneDrive, I want to make sure I know who has touched it, what they did when they touched it, did they download it, did they just read it, those kinds of things. And I'll show you how that works. So it can be, it just requires diligence. This is working at work, so be careful with what you do. And it should be fine. But these tools are pretty powerful, and they can be really helpful. The OneDrive and even SharePoint Online are considered safe places because of the technology behind them to keep them safe, and the business agreements in place to keep them legal. But that's only half the battle. The rest of the battle is actually at the person level, taking the diligence to follow that and not leave printed out materials laying around and things that are not technology. They're just process and people related. And those aspects that come in, that's what they really focus on. The tech can come in and support those. That's really process. Business associate enrollment. That's the agreement. And that's the agreement number. Business associate enrollment. So it's a BAE. Sharing and syncing and things like that. We're talking more than network drive. Or actually manage stuff. So let's figure out what this file is all about and put in some available controls to help make the sharing easy, to make it trackable, and to make flow better. So it's managed content rather than just throwing it out in the share. Got controls like version, where we can do versions and roll back to a different version if we made too many edits to a version. We've got the auditing that I mentioned. Search. Where you stuck is something. Search can actually help more easily, hopefully, and able to do these managed systems. You done? Let's see what we got here. Okay. I'm going to begin by kicking that screen a little bit. So what I'm going to show you here is the same thing that you see on your OneDrive. You'll be able to actually access your OneDrive from these computers from any desktop that has an internet connection, but you won't be able to do the syncing and a lot of the more advanced stuff because you don't have your personally secured. But I'll just give you an overview. This menu over here. Let me come back to that because it's cut off. Area here is your document folder. When you put something sort of by default into your OneDrive, it's going to land here at this root of this documents folder. In that documents folder, though, you can have subfolders, and then, of course, in those subfolders, you can add documents or even more subfolders. So, similar to the experience you have on your file share your desktop now. Yes.
Is this going to migrate something? Say you had it on OneDrive and you realize that it's expanded and now it needs to be on the team site. Is it just drag and drop, or
Not yet.
okay?
Yeah.
So just trying to. So
Yeah.
how would you switch between? Is that the cart before the horse? Are we gonna?
Well, I'll say right now that there's not a built-in tool or an available tool that will do that. But next fiscal year, we hope to obtain some tools that will make that easier. We can do mass migrations of stuff.
Right.
The easiest way right now is to download it temporarily to a desktop or laptop and upload it.
Okay.
I've never tried to open OneDrive and a team site in different windows and drag and drop. That may work, but I don't know. I don't think it would. I don't know how it would keep track.
Matt, last time I tried, this has been a while back, I was gonna pull some of the things from flash drive or some other place to OneDrive, and so I wanted to copy folders and move them, and it would run. And so I would go in and build the folder again and then drag every individual thing, and that was pretty time consuming.
Did you have each folder, or did you just exceed the maximum?
Both issues. I think she's talking about you have to build the folders.
You have to build a folder in OneDrive. You just can't copy a folder over from flash drive to OneDrive. It won't go.
Right.
Okay.
That is a limitation currently, for sure. That's one of the tools we're going to try to buy that will actually make that easier. And that happens because the folder construct is not real. It looks real on your hard drive, and then it's a folder designation. More modern experiences recognize that. And so what they would towards is trying to organize your stuff according to tags or labels, or what they call metadata. A folder out there for English 101, and all the documents for English 101 are in that folder. That SharePoint or OneDrive would be, here's all your documents, each one of them. Some sort of artificial construct that wraps all the documents together.
Build a folder or metadata or whatever you call it on OneDrive. Then go into the folder and select multiple documents and move them at the same time, or do we have to move all of them at the same time?
Yeah, well, yes.
Individually, I mean.
Yeah, yes, you can. Once you've got the folder built, if you want to use the folder structure in OneDrive and reproduce it manually in OneDrive, then the way you'd move folders is you'd go into your drive, open it up. In the other window, you'd have your Windows Explorer view. You can grab all the files, individual files you want in mass, and drag them all over to the same corresponding folder. You can do that. But it's still a bit of a pain if you want to, maintain that familiar and working file folder structure. So that's first. Go into each one, mass move that contents of one to the corresponding one, go to the next one, master the contents of that one to the course. So it's a little more time. But hopefully, we're trying to get this tool that allow us to move and maintain that structure. The issue we run into there, though, and it might, is when you're moving over, if you've got a file named July 2001, quarter 7 or quarter 4 results from the survey dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal, DOCX, in a folder called January, and a subfolder called 2001, and in the subfolder called, so you've got this string of folders and subfolders and this long file name, and you try to move that up there, it can exceed the file name. So that into that a really deep and brain home space. And people do that. I mean, that just happens. Because the stack of documents, you want to know what was in it without opening it. So you put everything in the document in file name, right? The more modern way to handle it, what OneDrive support is to take those that fits the pieces of that file name, that long file. So the document that you have is just a report, the January report, whatever. So that's Word document. A particular topic. So you have got a column in your OneDrive or your SharePoint Online that's dedicated to defining that topic. Dedicated to that document. This report. Something else. Documents are automatically viable because of that tag quickly. So it's just a different way to take out that word financial aid from your document title and making it a distinct piece of data or metadata or a tag. Make sense? It's a shift. It's a different way of thinking. And one of those tools that we are looking at to be able to migrate, the job to migrate your stuff, and then apply this tag to it and move it across. So all the tagging and migration should happen in an open process. Good job. That's what we're looking at.
So, and that's correct.
Sure. OneDrive still doesn't do tagging well, so I may have confused the issue there. But these are folders, and we'll continue to use folders in OneDrive for a while. Yes, sorry.
My email, and the documents that my email attachments and stuff like that. I don't put that stuff like that.
You've got two documents. I didn't know it. The second one. First folder that shared with everyone. By default. I mentioned that the OneDrive is for one person, you. That's true. By default, when you put stuff in there, anybody with an email address, including students, keep that in mind. It's meant for our company, your entire company, same email address space. That could be helpful for some instances, but it's largely not. part of the more modern approach with companies that want to, yeah, transparency, sharing more, having a structure that's available to share immediately with everyone. So that's shared with everyone. The second folder is a folder called My Email Attachment. And that, I'm guessing, is new or recent. But I first opened my OneDrive a couple years ago, or a year and a half ago anyway. And so I'm guessing what's going on there is when you send an email and you have an attachment, it's actually going to be stored in that.
I see.
And that-
You've got it right in there since November.
That's kind of cool. You're emailed in one spot rather than in your email. Probably on the back end, it's really the same file and same space, but it's just a different way into it. That's interesting. I learned something. Have you all learned anything? I have. And then, so you've got your list of files. You've got, this is by default, you've got your modified. It's done. Minutes ago. Some of them are months old. The column is have access to it. At a glance, you can see who has access to what this stuff is. Largely, it's only you. Only you. Sometimes it's a specific person. Hopefully that was intentional. And then for documents and folders that more than one additional person that you're sharing it with, it's going to be shared. Have a little icon, looks like two people. So that shared with everyone's going to have that icon. Shared with this room, it would be shared. It wouldn't list you all out individually. And then you have who did what, when. That make sense? Let me show you a So these documents are shared with me, but they're probably in other drive. Hopefully there's fine. And yeah, they all look with the exception of the second one from somebody from Maysville, they all look like something that I'm interested in. This may have been a test early on, or it may have been a recent mistake. But this is an interesting way to view all the stuff that people have shared with me. Stuff called shared with.
Attachment. And I tried to click that attachment and it wouldn't open. But it said that it was from Office Online, I think. I don't know. And I couldn't open it, so I emailed her back and said I can't open this. But now when I've gone to share it with me, I think I found that file. So why couldn't I open it as an attachment?
Did you get a specific error or just not do anything?
It said I didn't have access to it.
Okay.
So I'm thinking this is it.
Yeah.
Here, when I go to share with me.
And that's two things. I'll try to address the question first. Sometimes, let me go back. Documents. Link here. This document. A couple ways I can. Sure. The receiving of the email. So the email and the process to apply the sharing hasn't happened yet. That's my guess right now. What happened to that specific? Although, with that, with the way that it's talking amongst or with mail, with email, and you've got this folder out there right now called your attachments, and someone's sending you a sort of secure attachment as an attachment, it's probably sticking it in her email attachment and assigning that permission. So that's a lot of sort of back-end processing that has to happen. Meanwhile, you've already gotten the email and gotten the link. That's something to keep in mind because that's kind of a new thing. I don't have the folder, so I haven't. Well, but it sounds like that. I know that when you do the manual sharing and you send a link, have the system send a link, there are often times where the actual sharing doesn't kick on immediately. It's like an hour or two later. So that's hopefully we get better and less of a problem. It's consistent too. Well, I've got this up. What I Real quickly. Make my own edit. Okay, there's going to be conflicts. People editing this document. Let's check. And check back in. Patty's in the other building trying to edit the document. You actually start up a conversation in the document. Saying, yeah. A sample document that I was putting together to give information on what all the stuff is at the top. Go ahead and work with this document. So